What's up, guys? My name is Zack, and for the last 7 days, I've been driving the 2024 Hyundai Elantra N. Up front is a 2.0-liter turbocharged inline 4, and down below is a 6-speed manual transmission. Now, I am super excited to be making this video because I've spent the last 7 days driving this Elantra N as my daily driver. And so I have a pretty good idea of what I like and dislike about the car, and it might be surprising to some of you in the comments. But if you would like to submit your own vehicle, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. But let's get back to that 2-liter turbo under the hood. Well, that's kind of why we're here, and part of the main reason that makes the Hyundai Elantra N so special. The N is the performance version of the Elantra. They used to do a Veloster N, there's a Kona N. N just means performance for the Hyundai naming system. It makes 276 horsepower and has been a lot of fun. It does build like an old school turbo where the boost really hits up top and not much happens down low. So if you want to have fun with it, you really got to rev it out. Around town, it's going to drive like the average economy Hyundai that any Joe Schmo might buy. One thing about that engine is the fact that it sounds great, so enjoy some driving I did last night. With the microphone on the rear license plate, you get some great crackles when you come off throttle when in N mode. Like I said, paired to it is a 6-speed manual transmission. Now, this is the lesser known option here, or less spec'd option for the Elantra N, and I don't love it, actually. I think the shifter and especially the clutch pedal is very, very numb. It feels almost electronic. I feel like I'm back in my parents' house, I'm 15, and playing Forza Motorsport 4 with a Logitech steering wheel and shifter. There just isn't much physical feedback. When you put it into the gate, you hear the plastic hitting each other, but that's kind of it. You don't get the vibrations through the shifter. Likewise, with the clutch pedal, you don't get much of that physical feedback that I crave from manual transmission vehicles. And so it feels kind of digital, which isn't what I anticipated. Last but not least, it is front-wheel drive, and it does have an electronically controlled LSD, which is fantastic. And my test whenever I drive these cars is there's actually a roundabout by my house, and I go around and round and round really late at night until the tires or diff or whatever starts to give up, and I start to hear screeching or sliding or things like that. I was the one that gave up in that scenario. The car wouldn't release its grip on the road, and I had to bow out. I had to say, all right, that's fine enough for me. So I am the weakest link in this driver situation. How does it feel to drive the Hyundai Elantra N with the manual? Like I said, the shifting is rather numb, but it is very fun, especially with that auto rev matching turned on. It is a fun drive, and I am driving stick shift. I'm shifting my own gears, and that's important to me. So at the end of the day, I still enjoy it, but I think other vehicles in the segment just have better feel. Visibility has been pretty good. Suspension, as we'll talk about with the drive modes, is very dynamic and changes, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. But fuel economy, I've averaged about 25.7 miles to the gallon over my week with the vehicle. Now, that is a very healthy mix of highway and city. I would say probably more highway than city, so those numbers might be inflated just a touch. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have a completely digital gauge cluster, and I really enjoy this because you can switch it with the drive modes. You get some fun animations, and when you finally do put it into N mode, mode, it really knocks your socks off, which is cool to see. On the steering wheel on the left, we have our voice commands, volume, skip track, favorite, phone icons, and our first N button. And then off to the right, we have our cruise control options, our second N button, and our rev match button. So, a lot to unpack here. First of all, the N buttons will engage N mode. There's N mode 1 and N mode 2. N mode 1 is going to be a lot less brutal, although it is going to make the exhaust louder, remap the throttle so you have quicker throttle response and things like that. But then N2 turns off all the nannies, so traction control goes away, stability control goes away, and it actually has a little disclaimer that pops up on the dash that says, hey, just so you know, you're getting rid of traction control when doing this. So there's not much use for this on the street, but if you do plan on taking it to the track, that's going to be the mode for you. Also, cruise control. We do not get adaptive cruise control in the Elantra N. Now, it's a stick shift car, which is fine. You don't really need adaptive cruise, especially for stop and go traffic, because you have to shift anyway. But the GR86 at the same price point as a more enthusiast car does have adaptive cruise. The GR Corolla has adaptive cruise. So it would have been nice to see that here. Then we have our little red rev match button. So in any mode besides eco mode, you could turn this on and the car will auto rev match. Off to the left, we get our style circle. I've always loved this in the Elantras. This has no point. It's just here. Climate vent, gauge dimmer switch, and traction control off button, which probably doesn't get a whole lot of use given the fact that N mode already turns it off, so you just go into that mode. On the door, we do have a little speaker and some nice fabric, power mirrors, power locks, and power windows. And moving into the center, we have our infotainment system. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, however, they are wired, which I would have liked to have seen wireless, especially given the fact that we have a wireless charger, but not the end of the world. We do have some modes in here for the ambient lighting, so you can swap around the ambient lighting if you would like, which does add a really, really nice touch here at night. But that's not the only night settings we'll be talking about. Besides that, nothing too crazy. Here's the backup camera, and we can look at our N pages and N mode. This is a really cool system. You can not only adjust your settings, but it also gives you like throttle percentage and brake pressure and lap timers and all that really cool stuff. So this is a very, very cool thing to have in the infotainment. Down below, we have two climate control vents and the hazard switch and the buttons for the radio. Then we have our climate controls, dual zone climate, as well as heated seats. We do have auto climate as well. And down below, we have USB-C and USB-A. USB-A is for the infotainment. USB-C is just a charger. We also have a 12-volt outlet and a wireless charger, as I mentioned earlier, but with no wireless CarPlay, this seems a little bit redundant. Moving up towards the shifter, we have our drive mode select. So besides the N modes, we do have Eco, Normal, and Sport. Again, don't know who the heck would use Sport mode and not N mode in this car, but they still have it. And this does dramatically change the suspension. So, driving on the highway, which I have driven this car nearly exclusively in N mode, it takes bumps very, very personally. When I turned it back to Eco, where the car was juddering, it would just stop. And it was like it turned into a Cadillac. Now, obviously, it didn't float and bounce like a 76 Cadillac Eldorado, but it did soften the suspension quite a bit. And so on a road trip, I cannot recommend Eco and Normal mode anymore because it is just so good. Then we have our parking camera button, so we could take a look at our backup camera on the fly, and our parking sensors button. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you will want to familiarize yourself with the location of this button because the parking sensors are very overzealous. Once they start going while you're parking, they don't stop. Case in point, we're at a forest preserve, whatever. Let's see here. Let's pull up to this curb. All right, I get it. The curb's there. Handbrake. Done. No, we just, until you silence it, we just have to sit here and listen to this. It doesn't beep a couple times and stop. It will just continue to do this. Do you see how annoying it is to try to hear me and try to listen to me while this is going on? I can pop the door open, doesn't change a thing. You just kind of sit here in agony until you hit that button. This has been my experience. Then we move on to the shifter. As I mentioned, the shifter is rather numb. However, I really like the look of it. I like the little blue stripe on it. I think visually it's very nice, but I just don't enjoy the feeling of it. Down below, we do have the parking brake and the cup holders. We'll do a big freaking bottle test. Fail. Center console doesn't have a darn thing in it, and the seats. Now, this is a big thing because they are very, very sporty seats, and I'm a very, very big guy, and I fit in them pretty well. I am 5'11", about 275, and I fit decently comfortably. I drove this car for 5 hours on the highway the other day, and I didn't get uncomfortable. So that is very nice to see, and they do have a little light up element at night. The N logo will light up when the door comes open, which I think is a very fun feature. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats. So let's go do a backseat review. All right, so we're in the back of the 2024 Hyundai Elantra N, and a couple of things to note. First of all, headroom is a little bit low. My head is just starting to touch the ceiling. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm 5'11", about 275, and it's okay. You know, bowing my head a little bit, looking around, I don't hit it. But the knee room is absolutely fantastic. I have probably 6 to 8 inches between my kneecaps and the seat in front of me. I think anyone at almost any height would fit back here unless you're Shaquille O'Neal. So that is a good thing to see. I don't have rear climate vents, something I would have liked to have seen, but a lot of sedans leave that out. So not anything crazy. I have USB-C chargers down below and no center console to fold down. So not a ton of amenities back here, but the Elantra N really does absorb that sort of 1990s feel of like economy car that we hopped up for no reason. Really the Dodge Neon SRT4 sort of approach. So it's, you know, par for the course back here. Speaking of back here, let's talk about the trunk and cargo space, and then we'll talk about the looks. All right, we're on the back of the Elantra N. Single button here in the center, and pull it up like that. Get my iPass out of there. So, tons and tons of trunk space. And actually, to peel back the curtain just a little bit, the CATA, or Chicago Automobile Trade Association, the people that do the Chicago Auto Show, they invited me to a golf outing while I had this car, and so my golf clubs actually fit in there very, very well. With so much room to spare, I could probably fit a second or third golf bag in the back. The only downside, and this is specific to the N, is that red bar that actually stops items from going all the way through into the cabin. Now you can lower the rear seats to allow longer objects to go through, but because the N has the extra chassis bracing, it sort of prohibits that. Now you can remove that. I have seen owners remove that so they can fit larger objects, but then, you know, it's kind of taking away from part of the car. So just something to note, but fantastic rear seat and trunk space from the Elantra N. Now we got to talk about the looks, and this is hands down the best part of the car. Not only this awesome blue color, the N Performance blue color, but this has been redesigned for 2024. We will do a walk around. It's really just a facelift. It's not anything too crazy, but they facelifted the front end over the outgoing model, and I think they did a really good job with it. Take a look at these night shots. I think it is very handsome. Walking out to the car after a nice dinner at a restaurant or hanging out with friends has been really, really cool. You feel cool walking up to it. It's angular, it's styled, it's pissed off, it's pointy, and I like that a lot. However, here is the 2023 model, and then here's the 2024. 2023, 2024. You can see where they facelifted it a little bit. With all of that being said, though, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving the Hyundai Elantra N in manual for the last 7 days and over 400 miles? Well, I like the car. Let's get that out of the way. I like this car. It is a good car. It is not a great car. If you want something stick shift, turbocharged, and very fun to drive, this is a very good option, especially at the price point of around $35,000. Civic Si, this is a pretty good alternative to the Civic Si, a vehicle that has dominated this segment for the last 20 years. If you want a car that you can fit your golf clubs in and your family in, you know, you have one kid, Maybe you're a new family, you still want to have a fun car. This is great. And with that automatic transmission, I can't recommend it enough. It is a very fun car, and I can't believe I'm saying it. I think I would recommend the auto over the manual. But there's just a couple little things that keep this car, at least in my mind, from being one of the greats. And it really is boiled down to that shifter feel. I was so excited to have a manual car for a week. In today's market, us auto journalists, we don't get to experience it all that much. And so when Hyundai told me, oh, it's going to have a manual, we're going to send it this week, I got so excited. And then driving it, it just didn't really live up to the expectations that I was hoping for. As I said, it was kind of numb. I also don't like the fact that I don't get wireless CarPlay. I don't like the fact that I don't have adaptive cruise. I don't like the fact that the parking sensors are so overzealous. There's just some little droplets here and there of things that kind of bothered me that gate kept this car from entering one of the greatest cars ever made. Is this a good car? Yes. Is it one of the greats? I don't think so. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Hyundai for sending me this vehicle for the last 7 days to try. Huge thank you to Drive Shop for cleaning and facilitating the delivery of this vehicle. And of course, the Midwestern Automotive Media Association. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.